If you were on track for or achieved a lower UCAT score than you were hoping for, don't write this year's application cycle off just yet. Now that the exams are out of 2,700, university benchmarks have shifted and there's still opportunity while they're recalibrating. So in this video, I'm going to show you 3 moves that you can do. They are data driven, and later I'll show you a category of universities that hasn't been considered. Now, what I will say is if you're still about to sit your UCAT, it's not too late. And if you want something that's going to get you back on track, and go to our UCATalyst Method page. It's a 6-stage process that's going to help you get back to where you need to be to get the score that you want. Now, because the exam only changed last year, the data isn't great, but we're taking this from our University Selection Clinic database, which is actually information that we've got directly from the universities, so probably has a little more insight for you than what's out there. But now that it's changed, let's first define what a low score is these days. And I would urge you not to use raw numbers because we have such little data, but instead use the deciles, because that will give you a better translation of where you can apply with a given score. So a low score by definition is what's below average, so anything beneath the 5th decile. And last year the average score was 1,890, so really we're talking about anything below that. Now that doesn't mean below that won't get in. For example, last year on the FutureDoc program someone got in with the 1770, which is on the border between the 2nd and 3rd decile, so really in the bottom quarter, and still managed to get a place because some of the stuff that I'm going to show you later you can still compensate for a bad UCAT score and get in this cycle, like I'm saying, if you do the right things elsewhere. So like I said, we've got 3 moves that we can pull. The first one is that we need to look at universities where the UCAT is a lot lighter in the weighting process for selecting students. So some universities weight UCAT very lightly compared to things like academic grades, work experience, interview, and contextual flags. And I'm going to list some unis now for you, but in a moment I'll show you why it's so important to just get in front and past that selection panel so that you get to interview, because it is significant. So firstly, we can consider Aston, where the UCAT is just 1/3 of the shortlisting. Then Exeter, which has just 25% UCAT weighting and 75% academic grades. Liverpool similarly only has a 25% UCAT weighting. Kiel historically have published a minimum threshold, which was around 2,280-ish by the old test. So that means by the new standards, it's typically around the bottom quartile, so around the 1,700 mark by today's metric. Then we have Queen's in Belfast, which is a points-based system where the GCSEs dominate as well. Also, they give a score for every single decile. It's just that obviously the lower deciles get lower scores than the higher ones. You could consider Sunderland, who accept the top 8 deciles. So as long as you're not in the bottom 20%, that is an option for you. And then you could consider Hull and York Medical School, which is holistic and points-based as well. But here's the really important thing that I alluded to earlier. For most universities, once you clear the UCAT threshold, the UCAT score is no longer considered. So instead of trying to compete on UCAT, think of UCAT as just getting past the threshold, and then you can wow them to offer you a place with all the other bits that make up a strong application. That's why the next part is so important, because it's about all the other things. What we do at FutureDoc is we have an interconnected system that looks at every single part of the application, because a really strong holistic application, well-rounded application, is the interplay with all of those things feeding each other, and then they contribute to more than the sum of their parts and make a really strong candidate that's likely to get an offer. If you want to find out more about the FutureDoc program and why we have a 93% success rate, you can find out more about our predictable offer protocol on the FutureDoc website. So let's go through the non-UCAT levers that you can strengthen. The first and by far the most important is your work experience. As I said, this is what contributes to everything else. It makes you the real deal. It gives you confidence. It gives you drive. It helps you write a good personal statement, and it helps you speak confidently and clearly at interview, and they can see that you know what you're talking about. A well-reflected set of short work experience is much better than a laundry list of stuff that you haven't taken the time to look at. If you want to understand the philosophy behind work experience, go to the FutureDoc website, where we have something called the experience lens. And as it suggests, it helps you see the work experience through the eyes of a doctor or someone in the selection committee, as they want to see what you've got out of it. The next thing is personal statement. Now, some universities don't use it much, some use it quite a lot. Birmingham, for example, has about a 15% weight, and especially they look at it a lot more in certain contextual offers at certain universities. You'll hear people say that the personal statement doesn't matter, but don't be fooled, especially in the time now where it's more competitive than ever. Often they're splitting hairs, and that can be the thing between you and somebody else who they're choosing to offer a place to. The next is university selection based on things other than just UCAT. Yes, UCAT is important, but when we're selecting universities with students, the best thing that we do is look at everything. What's their profile looking teaching? Like, where are their real strengths? Are those suited to this university? Even if the UCAT scores match, you need to think more than just, have I got the grades? Have I got the UCAT score? Like, there's much more to it. And being smart about where you select is really a big difference maker between people who succeed and people who don't. And of course, finally, we have interviews. And as you've probably heard me say, interview preparation starts the day you start your preparation. It's not about rehearsing some neat little lines 2 weeks before you go and sit in front of the interview panel. It is about becoming the real deal. And that is a combination of all the things that come before it. But for those high interview weighted universities, like we said, most of them will ignore the UCAT once you've hit the threshold enough to be invited to interview. Beyond that, the UCAT plays no further role, which almost nobody mentions, which is why you'll hear me say time and time again, the UCAT is both overvalued and underestimated. Underestimated because if you're in a place where you've got a low score, you realize that there's probably a lot more to it than you thought, but also people think that it's the only thing that matters. Great UCAT scores will not get into university if they've ignored all the other things that I mentioned, and also poor UCAT scores will get offers if they have made the rest of their application really strong. So again, same reason not to lose heart. Equally, if you're worried that because I didn't score highly in the UCAT, it means that I won't be a good medical or dental student, or I won't be a good doctor or dentist, they did some studies on this, and there is barely any correlation between how well people do on the UCAT and how well they go on to do in their career. So don't see it as anything disheartening or it's not meant to be. It's just a game that you have to play and learn to get past to get where you want to be. And there is a way to learn to play it, and you can get there. Just so don't lose hope, because it is really something that is just a necessary evil to get where you want to be. And the third move is essentially plan B. Now that could mean a few things for a few people. For some, it could mean just taking a gap year, going again next year. And if you're worried that that means like, oh, I'm at a disadvantage, does it mean that I sacrifice my chances? Check out this testimonial by Lucas, one of our Future Doc students, who didn't get a single offer and then reapplied coming through the Future Doc program, and he got a place at King's College London and at Oxford University, amongst other two. But obviously those are the main headlines where he wanted to go. And he's a great story for how you can turn a failed application around into getting into some of the most prestigious medical schools. And we've got dental students who've done the same. Some people might want to consider doing a degree and then going by the grad route. I will just say that it is much, much harder and more competitive to go that way. Grads, if you're applying as a graduate now, you may want to consider the GAMSAT, because it's much more something that is suited to a different type of brain, and people with the right preparation do well in that, and no one wants to take it. So just by the fact that you do it, you put yourself amongst a rare group of people, and therefore you make it a lot more likely to get into one of the GAMSAT unis. So remember, don't give up hope. There are always options available to you. It's only really over if you give up. If you want some help, check out this video here. Otherwise, best of luck with your application, and watch some of the UCAT videos or other med school videos on the channel to help you maximize everything else about your application. Best of luck, and I'll see you there.